It is the 10th day of the war in Iran, and here's where things stand. 8 United States service members have lost their lives. Earlier this afternoon, the Pentagon confirmed that 140 service members have been injured. The average price of gas is $3.54 a gallon, the highest since Trump took office, and up 55 cents since the day the war started. And when asked about when we, the American people, could expect the war to end, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt would not commit to any timeline. She said that the war will end only when Donald Trump, quote, determines the military objectives have been met, fully realized, and that Iran is in a position of complete and unconditional surrender, end quote. I want to bring in Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Senator, you've been prolific social media and in other interviews, and I just want your take on this excruciating moment for any military family, any military spouse, any kids who have yet to hear the President of the United States articulate a clear mission, a clear timeline, strategic objectives, or definitions for success.
The most sacred responsibility that a commander-in-chief has is the decision on when to send our men and women into war, because it obviously exposes our young soldiers to the unthinkable, to dying in combat. And that's why our founding fathers said one person shouldn't be in charge. It should be up to Congress, listening to the American people. I just came from a 2-hour closed-door classified briefing on the war. It just confirmed to me it's totally incoherent. We are not going to be able to achieve any of our stated objectives. But I mention it because it's another closed-door briefing. We have still not yet heard a full explanation as to why this is necessary. We still have had no hearings in front of Congress that the public can see. And I think that's pretty simple, because if the president did what the Constitution says, come to Congress to get authorization for this war, he wouldn't get it. The American people would demand that their member of Congress, their senator, whether they be a Republican or Democrat, vote no, because this is a disaster of epic proportions. It's already getting Americans killed. It's driving up prices here at home. Harder line leadership, more antithetical to U.S. interests, are strengthening inside Iran. And there's really no way that we're going to be able to destroy their nuclear program, because most of it is buried underground, unless we mount a ground invasion, which would be even more disastrous and more unpopular. This has just been a debacle, a 10-day debacle. And we're going to use whatever leverage we have in the Senate to try to prompt those hearings, to try to prompt that vote, and to get this administration to start paying attention to the Constitution.
From your briefing or from your conversations, do you have any sense if boots on the ground are a serious consideration?
Well, they certainly have not taken the option of ground troops off the table, neither publicly nor privately. Now, every single briefing you have, you get a surprise. We got one just about 30 minutes ago when the Department of Defense told us that, in fact, their nuclear program and getting rid of it is not an objective of this war. Literally, in my other ear, I'm listening to Ted Cruz on another network explain why this military mission is so essential to destroy the nuclear program. I may have to walk over there and tell him that, in fact, the administration is now briefing Congress that getting rid of the nuclear program has nothing to do with this mission. But it speaks to the incoherence. I can't really blame Ted, because every single hour, the objectives that they state publicly and privately for this war change. So, yes, every time we get a briefing, we learn something new, but we shouldn't be learning the objectives for this war. It should be the American people who are learning about why they're going to be paying thousands of dollars more every year for gas and for groceries, for everything else they buy, as this war grinds the global economy to a halt.
Yeah, I mean, let me just show you what has happened to gas prices over 10 days. This is according to AAA. Before the war started 11 days ago, national average gas price was $2.98. It is now $3.53. It's on a trajectory that speaks for itself, especially ahead of spring break and Easter and Passover and ahead of summer. Do they have a strategy for this other than Donald Trump basically telling oil tankers to man up and just go for it?
No, they have no strategy to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And that's what this basically comes down to. This is a 21-mile wide stretch of water that all the Middle Eastern oil moves through. Iran essentially controls it. Why? Because even if you destroy their navy, all they have to do is drop a handful of mines in that water. Maybe they've done that already, and no tanker, even with an escort, is going to move through. But even if we wanted to escort the tankers, you're talking about devoting the entirety of the U.S. Navy just to move tanker traffic through the Strait. It's just a debacle, totally foreseeable, and there's no sign that it's getting better. The tanker companies have basically made it clear, we're not moving any product through the Strait. The U.S. doesn't really have the capacity to escort all the traffic that needs to move through. And so global oil market analysts are telling us this might be Armageddon. Like prices might be $5, $6, $10 pretty soon. And that's just not your family's having trouble filling up your gas tanks. That means the price of food doubles as well as transportation costs to move everything throughout this country skyrocket.
What is the reason, if the nuclear program isn't the reason, as poor Ted Cruz, I never thought I'd put those three words together, is over there talking about nukes? And we know that the intelligence did not suggest that an attack was imminent from Iran. What is left? Why are we at war with Iran?
Great question. Yeah, great question. I mean, the simplest explanation, might be the one that they gave 24 hours in, that they've kind of tried to backtrack since then, which is that Israel made us do it. That Bibi decided on this timeline, Netanyahu decided he wanted to attack, and he convinced Trump to join him by scaring Trump into believing that U.S. assets in the region would be at risk, and so Trump was better off just joining Netanyahu. I hope that isn't the full explanation, but you're right. As we are now hearing that the nuclear program is not part of their targeting campaign, as we're now more confident that even harder line leadership is taking hold, as the Strait of Hormuz is still being shut down, even as we get their navy, what's left as the explanation? It might just be that Israel forced our hand. And how weak does that make the United States look? How weak are we if our allies can force us into wars of choice that are bad for U.S. national security interests?
When you talk about an oil Armageddon, what tools, if this was a sort of functioning administration, what would the collaborative effort be like to deal with an energy Armageddon? And let's stipulate they are not. They don't seem to be on the same page on much of anything.
Well, that's kind of asking, after you drop an egg on the ground, what's your plan for reassembling it perfectly into its previous form? Once you break this thing, once you have attacked Iran, assassinated their religious leader in the middle of Ramadan, there is probably no way to de-escalate. They are going to use the one piece of leverage that they have, which is their ability to mine and harass traffic in the Strait of Hormuz to maximum benefit. So I just don't think there's actually a solution here except ending this war immediately. Even once you do that, it's likely going to take months before traffic restarts, because it's not just the Strait being shut down. It's actually Iran's ability in the early days to attack a lot of the production capacity in the region, including Saudi Arabia. So production is down because of those strikes, and the transit corridors are shut down. Even if the war ended tomorrow, that's still months before traffic starts, and it's probably even more months, right? 5, 6 months before energy prices get down to where they used to be.
Let me ask you this. One of the tools they would have, in addition to attacks on energy infrastructure, is terrorism. I think it's one of the 11 rationales that has been offered. Did you hear anything about a ramped up counterterrorism strategy to protect the United States and our allies from terrorist attacks from Iran if they choose to deploy any?
No, and we are, in fact, doing the opposite. Kash Patel, over the last year, has waged war on our counterterrorism capabilities at the FBI. He has summarily dismissed some of our top people who hunt terrorists domestically. Right now, CISA, which is the agency that protects us from cyber threats, is closed. Notwithstanding our disagreements with the way that ICE is operating, we've offered Democratic votes to reopen CISA, which is inside the Department of Homeland Security. Republicans have refused. So not only are they not standing up protection against terrorist attacks, they are weakening our ability to find those plots and stop them. And the plot and the threat is going to increase. Traditionally, Nicole, as you know, we've traditionally faced threats from Sunni terrorist groups. That's what ISIS and al-Qaeda were. But Shia militancy will grow, again, in the wake of the United States having assassinated their holy leader during the holy month. Those Shia militancy groups, which have been quieter in terms of their designs against the United States, will likely get much louder.